Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure is one of many Thomas movies that is said to be the best by most fans, while some dislike it, having their perceptions of the film regarding their scenes, and this was no exception to how they perceive three characters: Thomas, Gordon, and Sir Topham Hatt. When the movie came out, of course there's going to be also the critics that are going to praise it and criticize it. However, one faction will go all its way to defend Thomas and slander both Gordon and the Fat Controller, claiming that the punishment Thomas got in the movie should have gone to Gordon of constructing a new branch line, and Sir Topham Hatt is being way too cruel to Thomas. So today, I want to break this down into 3 sections, plus my thoughts on the movie. So, let's start off with Gordon. So Gordon, fans pin the blame on Gordon for getting Thomas in trouble after he decided to push the coaches onto the main line, nearly derailing Emily, but also ending up derailing the coaches, not only damaging them as their railway property, but also could have resulted in injury and death. But don't worry, I'll get to that with Thomas soon. When Thomas was sent to the construction, people blamed Gordon for his punishment of being sent there, all because he called him a silly little tangent. Like what? Seriously?
You know full well that tender engines are too big for shunting. That's what silly little tank engines are for.
He should be punished for barking and not biting. What kind of logic is that, Thomas defenders? Like seriously? Damage property and nearly hurting people? That's fine. Insulting Thomas? Punish. Like what? Huh? To be clear, Gordon cannot be punished for being a jerk verbally. Like, yeah, a certain talking would have sufficed about respect towards others, but having him go to help with the construction site on the branch line as a punishment for calling Thomas a silly little tank engine when he literally derailed the coaches, like, what? That's just not right. And the only way I can see that happening is after Thomas derailed the coaches, Gordon buffers up to Thomas, drags him, and shoves him to the ocean. But that never happens. So Gordon can't be punished for verbally being rude to Thomas, which is the only way I can see Gordon being punished in the fan fictions fans made. But since he didn't attack Thomas physically after he derailed the coaches, he can't be punished for verbal smack talk. My overall point is that punishing Gordon severely just for a few words is just illogical and doesn't make sense. It's better he has a stern talking to, and that's it. Unless he physically hurt Thomas, like dumping him to the ocean, which he never did, he can't be punished because all he did was bark and not bite, compared to a character fans like to defend despite the fact he could have caused serious injury and death. And now, we are on to the next point of everyone's favorite little blue tank engine. This section here is where I'll start to speak more harshly, if not beyond that. I have seen videos and comment sections that defend Thomas when he derailed the express coaches that could have caused injury or death.
You'll have to catch me first!
Stop, Thomas!
Has a danger sign when he was shunting the flatbeds of materials when the ground collapsed beneath his flatbeds, taking him down with it, which could have led to the loss of materials that could have complicated things.
Thomas didn't realize that the men were trying to flag him down.
Let Ryan take bad coal, not even bothering to warn him about it.
Thomas filled up with coal.
You don't sound right. I think you've had some bad coal. Oh, okay.
Ryan was taking the bad coal from the old hopper.
Especially when Ryan was shunting a train of trucks full of dynamite, resulting in them being lit up, and Thomas having to get rid of that train because of his choice of letting Ryan take the bad coal. Everything I mentioned that Thomas did, compared to what Gordon has said, is a lot worse when you compare both of them, showing that Thomas was actually a lot worse than Gordon before he starts his redemption. Now sure, he got rid of the dynamite, yes, but this and everything prior to his actions showcase his negligence, carelessness, jealousy, and recklessness. Now you're probably thinking, after saying this, you're probably wondering if his redemption in the end, in my eyes, is worthless. No. His redemption is actually quite good, because it shows that At a time where Sailor John was stealing the treasure from Sir Topham Hatt's safe, it shows how much Thomas is willing to put aside his cheekiness to stop a criminal from escaping with property. And the chase and his attempt to stop Sailor John from getting away really redeemed him and even helped him get back into good graces with Sir Topham Hatt. Now, people say that Thomas should have shouted back at Sir Topham Hatt because he was scolding him after he got rid of the dynamite. I'm sorry, but that would result in Topham having to shut Thomas up due to his lack of cooperation by putting him in the shed for like a very, very long time, or demoting him into withdrawal to prevent him from hurting others from his perspective. But I'll get to that later on. So Thomas fighting back won't really do in this scene, especially when Thomas saw him shunting the dynamite into Ryan from his perspective, made him think that Thomas was a severe endangerment to anyone and is an irresponsible little But let me say this though, the fact that these Thomas defenders defend Thomas when he could have caused injuries, death, and damage, yet continue to slander Gordon all because he said hurry up to Thomas and call him a silly little engine, like, them even making these videos and scenarios and even slandering Gordon more and more, as well as some had, it's not even an opinion anymore, it's just downright hatred, which their hatred reminds me of one writer's hatred for something. I'll get that to another point of the video. But overall, the continued slander towards Gordon when Thomas has done way worse is just not tolerable anymore. It's annoying, bland, and it's just intolerable in general. And it even outrages me when they think that Topham Hatt should apologize for holding Thomas accountable for his actions in regards to recklessness and negligence. I have also seen fan fictions where fans have Emily or Toby stand up for Thomas, even though Thomas literally put the blame on both of them as well.
And Emily was coming in very fast, and Toby was...
Enough, Thomas!
Which not only applauded them, but it also made sense that they would not stand up for Thomas because Thomas tried to put the blame on them as well, trying to avoid accountability. So really, I don't know what these people making fanfics are smoking about. Just like I said with Gordon calling him a silly little tank engine as a justification, which made his punishment even more deserving. Because at the end of the day, no matter what one person says, you are responsible for your actions. That is it. Now I'm done with Thomas, let's get on to Sir Topham Hatt. Now, I might get backlash for saying this, but here it goes. Tom has every right to be so angry, harsh, and furious with Thomas because of everything Thomas did before starting his redemption. And he even had the right to be angry with Thomas when he only saw him shoving trucks of dynamite into Ryan, which can blow up at any moment. Let's first look at his perception. He only saw Thomas shunting the truck of dynamite into Ryan. Imagine what he's feeling when he's seeing that. Seeing one of his own engines trying to murder another engine with explosives from his perspective. It would make sense that he would absolutely lose it because he could never imagine that one of his own engines would kill another one, let alone Thomas being the one that's trying to murder Ryan, as that's what he thought he saw. One thing to note is that Topham didn't fully see what fully went down, and when he only saw Thomas pushing the dynamite into Ryan, it was at that moment he didn't want to hear any more out of Thomas, to the point where he would shut him up whenever Thomas tried to speak. Now, people say that he's being too mean to him, but if you look at it from his perspective, you understand why. And if you take account of what Thomas did before, like derailing the coaches and even ignoring danger signs, is when you fully understand. Also, Thomas endangered Ryan when he didn't warn about the bad coal. So even if Topham wasn't there but was given a full rundown, he would still be angry at Thomas for something. I also want to think that this scene is where he's at his limit with Thomas. His patience has officially melted and he's about had enough. And it was when he was discussing about the treasure over the phone was when he felt some kind of relief because he needed something to take his mind off the stress. So I would say he's not being mean. He's just doing his role as an authority figure and chairman of the Northwestern Railway. And he's only doing his best to keep the railway running and his engines operating safely. Because I like to think that one of his worst fears is that one of his engines could end up doing something way worse, where it will result in them being beyond repair. I think that's why he let his rage out towards Thomas, because what could have happened was not only would Thomas have hurt Ryan or anyone, he could have hurt himself. It also doesn't help that he has to deal with other things like finances and the status of the railway to keep the engines going. So I wouldn't say he's being mean, as many people would say and would over-exaggerate about, but he's just doing what he can as an authority figure, a controller, and a chairman, because it's his job to look after the railway and their engines, whether it's what they do or what the punishments should be. Besides, his relationship with Thomas got better after Thomas redeemed himself for trying to stop Sailor John from escaping. Hell, that showed not only how apologetic Thomas is, but it also lets Topham Hatt know that Thomas had some kind of remorse. So, like I said before, he's not as bad as many see him as. He's just doing his job, and his patience, it just has limits. Something Thomas defenders often overlook or just don't take the opportunity to look into. Well, I did say I was going to get to this, but here it goes. So, for those that don't know, Garth Ennis is a writer who hates superheroes. With some exceptions, by the way. And with his hatreds of superheroes, he would end up writing a comic series known as The Boys, where it's meant to be a satire of poking fun out of the superhero trope, but ends up taking a few things too far and becoming very, very intolerable. This is no different when comparing it to the fanfics where fans basically punish Gordon and Sir Topham Hatt. Because one thing that these two, in comparison, have in common is that The Boys and the Sodor Legend of Lost Treasure fanfics come from a place of hatred. The Boys are all about killing cartoonic superhero freaks that have no realism to them at all, and the fanfics are basically Gordon and Sir Topham Hatt being punished for either barking or for doing their jobs. And these two take these tropes to the very extreme, repeatedly, until it becomes very, very intolerable. That is one thing that these two have in common. If you want a video on The Boys, check out this video here. It'll be in the pinned comment down below. But overall, this is a comparison I've noticed between the Sodor Legends of Lost Treasure fanfics and The Boys by Garth Ennis. While the film was okay for most of the part, as well as the fan service, like from Donald and Douglas returning, I don't like how the movie portrayed Thomas and Gordon's dynamic, as well as a few other characters I could name. Henry! But back to these two. I don't like how they are portrayed in this film. Sure, it makes sense for them to act like this in The Adventure Begins, for example, as established in this scene.
It's time for our first train!
Sorry, Annie and Clarabelle, but I have to fetch Lazy Gordon's coaches first.
I heard that, Thomas.
But you are Lazy Gordon. Otherwise, you fetch your own coaches.
You know full well that tender engines are too big for shunting. That's what silly little tank engines are for.
Silly little tank engines? Well, maybe this silly little tank engine should take the express today.
But if you want to take in Thomas' maturity arc in the classics, as well as Gordon's character arc in the books, but you would know that that would be a problem if the portrayal in The Sodor Legend of Lost Treasure took place after both of them. Like, yeah, the movie feels whack, weird, and nostalgic. However, there is a difference between keeping consistency with characters in the show and giving them a whole new portrayal in movies and specials. I personally feel like Thomas's role could have gone to Ryan, albeit with him being introduced as a new engine and as a new shunter for Knapford. And also that Gordon's role could have gone to some other express engine, maybe a new one that's come to help Gordon with the express. He could be any engine, LNER, Southern Railway, doesn't matter. Have Ryan be the one that derails the coaches, and him being sent to the construction yard to learn his lesson. Basically give him Thomas's story in it. And maybe Thomas could be in the film? Since if we want to take in the fact that this is the Thomas after his maturity arc, maybe he'd be the one that helps Ryan get his footing on the railway, learn about accountability and all that. Like something like that. At least then we would keep Thomas in the film, but also give the spotlight to a new character, just to keep Thomas and Gordon's arcs and their alliance consistent. So, what's my conclusion to this? Well, my conclusion is that people who say that, for example, Thomas didn't do anything wrong, so Topham Hatt should have punished Gordon for teasing Thomas, or Gordon should be the one that takes the role of the movie. Like, they're all wrong about that. They're wrong about Gordon, they're wrong about Thomas, they're even wrong about Topham Hatt, and they're wrong about the whole film. All because they have such a strong hatred towards Gordon, even going as far as to slander him, making their hatred very clear in not just fanfics, but also in other projects as well. I really wish they took a look at the Railway series and saw that Gordon actually matures in the book. So that way they have a different perception of Gordon, seeing that he's not just this big cocky express engine, but as someone that goes through the times, like anyone else. But nah, they have to show all their hatred in any fan project that basically is about slandering Gordon. As one reviewer once says, too much hatred towards something can become as intolerable as the thing it's making fun out of. And these Thomas defenders are very, very intolerable because they don't realize what Thomas's role in the movie was all about. Thomas's role in the movie was a message about taking accountability for his actions. No matter what one says or does, he is responsible for his actions, as are you. Accountability is important. Let that sink in. So before I end the video, if you want to look at both sides of people defending Thomas and saying that Thomas is at fault, I will put the link to one of whether or not Topham Hatt is right or wrong by the Thomas Theorist, and another is a PDF by Everything Productions. These two might give you a more different perspective on both sides who defend and hold Thomas accountable. But until then, this is my video, and I'll see you all next time. Cheerio!